Hello and welcome to Math with Mrs. Becker. Today we are looking at pre-calculus, starting Chapter 2, Section 3. Today we get to do some really fun application problems. Let's get started. The average of two real numbers is 41.125, and their product is 1,683. Find the two numbers. What we need to realize is that we know two different bits of information. So let's take each bit of information and turn it into an equation. Remember to find the average. What you have to do are add up the values and then divide by the number of terms you have. So here we have the average of two real numbers. We don't know what those numbers are, so let's call them x and y. We're dividing by 2 because that's the number of values that we're adding together. So x plus y divided by 2, that's how you would find the average. The average is 41.125. Now product. Product means multiplication. Their product, meaning the two real numbers. We just said that we were going to call our two real numbers x and y. So their product, x times y, equals 1,683. Now what I have to do to find these two numbers is I need to find a way to combine these two equations. So what I can do is solve one of the equations for one variable. Let's go ahead and solve this for y. If I want to get y by itself, the first thing I'd want to do is cancel the denominator by multiplying both sides by a 2. 2 would cancel a 2, leaving me x plus y equals. If you go ahead and take 41.125 and you multiply it by 2, you get 82.25. Now if I want to get y by itself, I need to minus the x to the other side. So y equals 82.25 minus x. Now what I can do is use the substitution method that you would have studied back in Algebra 1 and then again reviewed it in Algebra 2. I can take y out and substitute in what y is equal to into the other expression. So x times y, which is 82.25 minus x, equals 1,683. Well, now at this point, I need to go ahead and distribute. So 82.25x minus x times x is x squared equals 1,683. Now what I just did is I took all this information and I put it together into one equation. So I took the information about the average of two real numbers is 41.125 and the product is 1,683. This has a degree of 2, so this means I'm going to be able to find two answers. So when I go ahead, I'm going to set this equal to 0, and I can use the quadratic formula, and hopefully I'll have my two numbers. I like my first value to be positive, so when I get this set equal to 0, I'm going to go ahead and have my 0 on this side. Negative x squared, I'm moving it to the other side, so I'm adding it, so it's positive x squared here. This is positive 82.25x, so I have to minus it to the other side. Now my positive 1,683, this got to keep its sign because it did not move to the other side of the equation. Now to find the two solutions, which hopefully it's the two numbers that if I find the average, I get 41.125, and if I multiply them, I get 1683. I can find that now by using the quadratic formula because this is equal to 0. I have two x's. Sorry, there's my x. There we go. I have two x's, one x's, no x's. A is always the value in front of your squared term. Here it's a 1. B, the value in front of x, is negative 82.25. C is your constant that does not contain a variable, 1,683. When I am doing the quadratic, I like to do the discriminant first. B squared minus 4ac. B, negative 82.25 squared minus 4 times a is a 1 times c is 1683. If I go ahead and calculate that, negative 82.25 squared minus 4 times a is a 1 times c is a 1683. Here is the number that goes underneath the radical. Okay, that's my discriminant. So x equals negative b. B is a negative value right now, so negative of a negative makes us positive, 82.25, plus or minus the square root. Here's b squared minus 4ac, 33.0625, all over 2 times a. A is a 1, 2 times 1 is 2. Now what I have to do is go ahead and calculate the square root of our discriminant. The square root of 33.0625 is 5.75. So I have 82.25 plus or minus 5.75 over 2. Now here are my two answers. I have to take the top values and add them, then divide by 2. 82.25 plus 5.75 equals 88, divided by 2. One answer is 44. Now you subtract the top. 82.25 minus 5.75 is 76.5. Divide that by 2, and your other value would be 38.25. So these should be the two numerical values that if I find the average, I get 41.125. And if I find the product, meaning I multiply, I should get 1,683. So let's try it. To find the average, add the two numbers, 44 plus 38.25. Now divide it by 2. There's our 41.125. Let's find the product. 44 times 38.25. I get 1,683. Those are my two real values. In case you are like, what the heck just happened to me? Don't worry, I know this is a lot. We're going to go ahead and do one more, okay? So let's do another one. This one's a little bit different because obviously in math, you'll have questions that are similar, but they all kind of have their own little twist, okay? The average of two real numbers is 39.625. So I can set that up the same way that I started the previous problem. Two real numbers, let's just call them x plus y. To find the average, you would add them together and divide by 2. Equals, the average is 39.625. One number is 1,500 times the reciprocal of the other number. Well, let's just say that that one number is y, okay? So y is 1,500 times the reciprocal of the other number. Well, our other number is x. The reciprocal of x would be 1 over x. So what this is, remember if you're multiplying fractions, it's top times top, bottom times bottom. So what happens here is y is really 1,500 over x. All right, so what I can do here, okay, I have to get these two equations together. One really, really cool thing, I think, is if you can have both of the equations where it says y equals, you can go ahead and take those two equations and set them equal to one another. So just to remind you of different things that you can do, let's go ahead and do that process. If I want to solve for y, to cancel the denominator, you would need to multiply by 2. 2 cancels 2. X plus y equals, if I take 39.625 and I multiply it by 2, I get 79.25. To get y by itself, I need to go ahead and minus x. So y equals 79.25 minus x. Well, here's the deal. Y equals this and y also equals this. Because they're both equal to y, I can ignore the y's for right now, and I can take those two expressions and set them equal to one another. Because technically, they're both equal to y. So 79.25 minus x should be equal to 1,500 over x. Okay, so at this point you might still be saying, well, I don't want to deal with a fraction. Okay, well, I don't want to deal with a fraction either. Remember, one way to get rid of a denominator is to multiply it. I could multiply both sides by x. This cancels this, and guess what? I no longer have a denominator. When I multiply this side by x, you have to realize that there's two terms here. So this x does have to go to both terms. So it's 79.25x minus x times x is x squared. This has a degree of 2. Remembering from that fundamental theorem of algebra, whatever your degree is, that's how many solutions you should be able to find. We do have our degree of 2. We're looking for two real numbers. My next step here is to get the set equal to 0 so I can go ahead and do the quadratic formula. Now last time I moved everything here to that side, so this time let's just go ahead and move this 15 over. But you do want to make sure it's in standard form. So negative x squared plus 79.25x. To move the 1500, I have to minus 1500. It equals 0. To find my two answers, A, the value in front of x squared is a negative 1. B, the value in front of x is 79.25. C, the value at the end is negative 1500. I personally think it's easier to go ahead and find the discriminant first. B squared minus 4 times A times C. So if I have 79.25 squared minus 4 times negative 1 times negative 1500, I put it all in my calculator at one time, and I have 280.5625. That's the number that goes underneath the radical. It's called your discriminant. X equals negative b. B is a positive value, so it's negative in the quadratic formula. Negative 79.25 plus or minus the square root. This is b squared minus 4ac. That's the value that goes underneath the radical, all over 2 times a. A is a negative 1. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Your next step, we have to figure out what the square root of 280.5625 is. So let's go ahead and do that. The square root of 280.5625. I have 16.75. So here is my last step. This should help me to find the two values. Add the numbers on the top. Negative 79.25 plus 16.75. Divided by negative 2. 31.25. Okay, got it. If I take the other one, negative 79.25 minus 16.75 divided by negative 2. 48. Okay, so those should be the two numbers. Now we want to go back and test them. The average of two real numbers has to be 39.625. To find the average, you add the two values, divide by 2. 39.625. Awesome. One number is 1,500 times the reciprocal of the other. Okay, so it doesn't say which one. So if I take 1,500 times the reciprocal of 1 over 31.25, let's see if we get 48. 1,500 times 1 over 31.25, we get 48. So 1,500 times the reciprocal of the other, we would be able to get the other number. Here are our two values. Okay, let's go ahead and connect this fun idea to geometry. A rectangle is twice as wide as it is high. Okay, so if this is the height, the width would be 2h because the rectangle is twice as wide as it is high. It has an area of a rectangle. Remember, area is length times width. In this case, we're saying the width and the height. The area equals 24.5. What are the dimensions of the rectangle? Well, here we go. W is really 2 times h. W times h is 24.5. So I can take W and substitute in 2h. So 2h times h equals 24.5. This will help me find the height. If I multiply 2h and h, I get 2h squared equals 24.5. Divide both sides by 2. So h squared, 24.5 divided by 2 is 12.25. Now, typically, when you take the square root to cancel a square, you would include both a positive and a negative. But in this case, we're looking at a dimension of a rectangle. We're looking at the height. You cannot have a negative height of a rectangle. So in this case, we do only take the positive. The square root of 12.25 is 3.5. So the height is 3.5. The width is 2 times the height. So 2 times 3.5 is 7. So the width is 7. The height is 3.5. In order to test it, find their area. Area, you take the two numbers and you multiply them together because it's length times width. 3.5 times 7 is 24.5. We are good. One more just to make sure. Okay, the width of a rectangle is 3 times the height. We do not know what the height is. Well, here's the width, there's the height. What we know is that the width is longer. It is 3 times the height. So there's one of your equations. The area of a rectangle, I take the two dimensions and I multiply them. So W times H equals This time it's 60.75 square feet. I can use substitution again. W is really 3h. So I can come to this equation where the W is, I replace it with an h. 3h times h is 3h squared. That is equal to 60.75. Divide both sides by 3. I still have h squared. 60.75 divided by 3 is 20.25. Take the square root to cancel the square. Again, this time I'm only including the positive because we're looking for h, which is the height of a rectangle. It cannot be a negative value. If I take the square root of 20.25, the height is 4.5. So the height is 4.5 feet. The width is 3 times the height. If I take 4.5 times 3, I get 13.5 feet. So those are the dimensions. It's 13.5 feet wide by 4.5 feet high. To check your answer, if you go ahead and I multiply 4.5 times 13.5, the area would be 60.75. So those are the 2 ideas for the day. Your book assignment, you're going to go on to pages 105 and 106 in the textbook and do 1 through 4, and then jump ahead and go 15 to 17. Hope you had a great day. I'll talk to you soon.